Oh, your audio.
It's not coming through for a reason.
Oh,
Nope, nothing.
wow. Guys.
You probably gotta change like the input.
Oh,
Yeah, now there's green there.
oh, yep.
Mm-hmm.
Got a flash.
Come on, come on.
Everybody.
Okay, we got a pulse. Another pulse. Try this. Try saying something.
It's so triggering.
Okay, it's not working.
Maybe the leave and come back will work. Maybe. But at least we figured it's happening sooner than later.
So what are you guys focusing on today?
Journeys. So, but we can, start off on wherever we, feel needed as well. Just flow.
Oh, I wanted to mention something to Merrick that I forgot to say when you were asking about like setting up like mind test journeys. A really good way to start the journeys would be to like, at least for in my shoes, it would be to like go back to my reconstitution letter, which is my Life Givers Nation letter that I wrote. And the only reason why I thought of that is because I had to read Sandra's recently. And I was like, oh yeah, because if I go back to mine, like I pretty much have to, it tells me exactly like why I came in the first place, my culture, this and that, and to correct all these, wrongs. And it's like, oh yeah, that'd be a good starting point for a journey. And especially for the Turtle Clan because, France and Angel were there from the inception. So I don't know if they even had to write a letter, but they did, help establish the Women's Declaration, Life Givers Declaration. So I don't know if that's helpful.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of overlap with declarations, pledges, and code of conducts too. Yeah. I guess we'll figure out if Elo can talk at some point. Hopefully, it's better now. But yeah, we can get started. We should probably start with the Hondigo de Godekwa. To start things off right. Thank you kindly always reminding us, Merrick. I don't know. Does anybody else want to, Merrick, would you like to get us started? I'll ask you, or Des, if you'd like to. And since there's so many people here familiar with doing it, or anybody who hasn't done one, of course, is welcome as well. Thought I'd open up the floor, but I'm down as well. Yeah,
I'm happy to do it if it does.
Okay. Go ahead, Merrick. Go ahead.
All right, cool. I'll do it in English. I'll throw in some Ganyageha. I'll do what I can remember on the fly. I'll do an introduction I'll do it in English. So I'll introduce myself as Merrick, the son of Paula and the grandson of Goldie. That's so I introduce myself in that matrilineal way. And in speaking of these, protocols, and as I stand and, introduce myself from the west coast of Turtle Island, I think it's relevant here in this context, I think, as well, to mention the protection. I'm under the temporary protection of the Bear Clan through this Turo Wampum working group with the Five Nations Longhouse Confederacy, the Ganyageha. They're with the Ganyagahaga. And yeah, and so we'll start with this Ahono which is this words that come before all else practice. I think of it as a social technology. It's where we give thanks and give attention to collectively the things that are necessary for creation to have created us, and the things that are necessary to continue for us to be able to keep regenerating and to keep creating. So we start by giving thanks to Jukunsase. This is Sky Woman. which you can understand as this great spiral of creation, the physical spiral of creation, this galaxy that we're within, but also the spirals of creation at the smaller levels that bring things up into creation, like the spirals in our DNA. It's a spiral that's all around us. It's the spirit of creation. And so we give our thanks to that. And from there, we give our thanks to Yanti Sonta Garakwa, to Grandmother Moon, right? So we give thanks to the moon because she anchors us in time, right? She gives us this time cycle that pumps all of nature through the pumping action of the tides of both the oceans and the atmospheres around us, but also this kind of ionic tide between the new and the full moon cycles. She's necessary for our creation. We give our thanks to her. And then we notice too, part of this Ahonwe Garagadegwa that we do now is we notice the things that not only do we give thanks for the things, but we have to notice as well and mention the ways in which we're actually worsening our connection or destroying these things that we're giving thanks to. Because right now we're all stuck in this corrupt process of destruction that we've been kind of thrown into. So when we thank Grandma Moon, when we thank the moon, right, we noticed also that we're just us existing in this stack space. We're connected to systems that are planning to openly colonize the moon, to harvest rare earth elements, to harvest water from the moon, with no thought to regeneration. Just as colonialism has been on Earth, it'll be the same on the moon, and we're at a precipice of being able to put corrections on that now. But right now, as it is, we are all contributing to destroying through that. So that's included with our thanks to the moon. And now we give thanks to Mother Earth, right? She grows everything that we need. She gives us gravity. She gives us solid form, right? But we know that as we hang out in these, NFT spaces, we're on this verge of Industry 4.0, right? By nature of engaging with Bitcoin, unless we get proper corrections into there, we are supporting commodification, hyper-commodification, and hyper-extraction, which is destroying Mother Earth. So as we give thanks to her, we recognize that aspect of what we're doing as well. And we give thanks to all our mothers, right? In all shapes and forms, not just the human mothers, but the puppy dog mothers, the raccoon mothers, the rat mothers, the worm mothers, right? The tree mothers, because they all teach each thing how to be what it needs to be. But we recognize that in this male-dominant culture that we're in, we're kind of destroying that mother connection. And we're trying to get back to that now through these matrilineal protocols. But we recognize that by existing in our current status quo, global state, we're kind of destroying motherhood and putting blocks on that. And then so from there, we give thanks to the waters in all their shapes and forms, and all the medicines in all their shapes and forms, and we recognize that we're destroying them as well. The waters by our, again, unregulated market, water poisoning is based into it. I recognize where I'm at. The electricity I have is coming from the withholdment of a river, which makes the water sicker because it stops the salmon from being able to be as prolific as they used to be. And of course, with less salmon, there's less whales, and with less whales, there's less carbon capture bringing it to the ocean floor. So there's one way of me, being here connected is poisoning the waters. So we give thanks to those waters and those medicines, and we thank all our ancestors who carry the good mind, and we ask them to help us to show us the way, to return our mothers to their natural place of authority, so they can manage all of our people in all of our nations once again, so that we can have peace and clean water. And with that, we push away the things that will get in the way of the scroll of the three levels of existence. Edasawit, Edasawit, Edasawit. And we're open. Thank you, everyone, for gathering our minds to talk about Stax Journeys today, which is of the utmost importance to world peace. Check.
Thank you, Kali, man. Thank you, Kali. No, I think it's a good tone setting. It's good to hear other voices too. Allowing other, letting your mind go in different directions as they're saying it. and it's a beautiful thing in terms of reminding us of some of the bigger things that might bring us all together here, and what this technology and the innovation that can come from it is ultimately still connected to, right? And so, thank you kindly, now I'll go for the opening. And I think we have some exciting things to talk about when it comes to journeys. I think there's some things lingering on my mind as relates to the data working group, right? And how that might be able to come into the fold. I think there's other things that may have popped up project management wise as well that maybe come to discussion today. There's some going back to the spec that might be useful. That was interesting to me earlier in the day as myself and Haas tried to get something understandable to folks like Jenny and Will, the foundation, our connection to the grants and the journeys, right? And so I think Haas has done maybe upwards of 90% of that one pager that they asked for already done. So maybe it's worth going back. Made some changes to the diagram that maybe could do some more as well to reflect some of the things that are going on in that spec. So I could, maybe we get some eyes on that today as well. But I don't know if there's anything else lingering on folks' minds as it comes to journeys. I know we're still very early in a lot of ways when it comes to how it's implemented. And I'm interested in Haas's thoughts on anything that's been on his mind or any of the folks here that have been in these sessions. I know I missed the last session as well, so I don't know where you guys left off or maybe some important things that came out of that session. So, yeah, I'll leave the floor open. Thank you kindly, everybody, for being here as always. It's good to see you guys.
I can bring up the diagram, I guess. Is it in the journey spec paper?
Yeah, that's where it is.
Okay.
I made a few changes. I know the first diagram was kind of made before the spec was made and then altered again, and so hopefully it makes sense. Or I was thinking maybe of some additions that might be necessary as well. I have funding proposal there at the bottom of the diagram. Maybe we have more grants specific language as opposed to funding proposal or micro DAO, and this might lend itself to some of the thinking that Jenny has mentioned to us about bringing some of the smart contract stuff and some of the other stuff to the background and bringing grants, an alternative more informal means for community supported grants flows, right? Bringing that language more to the foreground. So I wanted to run that by you and see what you guys thought about any changes to language here, or changes to what the flows depict, questions as well. I figure it was still worth using, leaving Turtle, Wolf, and Bear in there as with the other diagram, as it ultimately speaks to some of the broader system design in ways that folks can plug into governance or other things, right from journeys as well. But yeah, but there's maybe some things too in the spec that we were thinking about and didn't get to. So I know it's all in the same paper. So just thought I'd throw that to the table today. Yeah, I don't know if there's anything else you'd like to mention. Any updates I'm forgetting, Haas, when it comes to journeys, or things we should be bringing to the broader collective about how we're thinking about it, how you've been thinking about it. It's language that maybe hasn't gotten out to everybody yet. I don't know.
Delicious.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
I've been wondering if this image needs anything around it about the well. because I'm thinking this is like a flow for a process of like the things and how and where and the kind of to do in order. And I've been hearing a lot of talk about the well and like that's where like things go or something. And I'm wondering if that's like a little piece before that or if I'm off here or if, yeah, I don't know. It's just something that I've been thinking about.
Yeah. Well, there is another diagram that is specific to, and it looks maybe too similar to this one, that is specific to the clan flows, and it starts off with the wolf clan, the well, right at the top, as opposed to ideation and workspace or discovery and updates. But you're not wrong either, even in this journey's context, right? When it comes to this is ultimately a means of a particular type of issue being picked up, right? And so it'll likely be wolves organically, bringing journeys to the foreground or what have you. But I did have issues as well originally in the original diagram. Instead of Avux DAO journeys, it just said issues. And I think that was a callback to some of that consensus flow, both language and actual flow and structure. But because journeys is, it's almost in its own model, right, outside of the consensus flow diagram. It looks, again, too similar to this one potentially. But folks can, the reason why Turtle Wolf and Bear is still on there is because folks can plug right from this journey stuff into that consensus flow that you may be thinking of, Allo. But in the other diagram, it does start with Wolf Clan. And yeah, maybe that should be more explicit in terms of language of well, or maybe we have more wording somewhere in terms of exactly what the well means for people who aren't as familiar as us, right? But maybe this is something that can happen in like accompanying captions or something as well. But let me know if I addressed your question correctly. Of course.
Yeah. Guess for me, because all this stuff is hypothetical, like where these things happen are starting to become less hypothetical, and you can actually see with your eyeballs the physical places where these like steps happen. I guess I'm still confused about the well. I think no, this is brought to the forefront of everything. This isn't brought to the well. So the well is like a whole process before or whatever, but then wolves get to like take it up. Is that where I'm missing it? Like this is energetically a different space than the well. This is.
Oh, no. Well, what I was referencing earlier with the other diagram was, specific to like governance, decision-making flows, right? And that's where the well, in terms of a Wolf Clan representative, right? Which I think when the Longhouse speaks of the well and all the responsibilities of the well, and when it comes to actually initiating issues onto the floor and things like this, and in that particular governance context, decision-making context. That's the well, right? And that's the other diagram when it speaks to Wolf Clan, right? Representatives bringing issues into, sparking the flow. That's active issues, right? So that's essentially where the Wolf Clan, lodges these issues, right? That you hear the Longhouse speak about, right? So active issues, right, is our visible well in that sense, right? But it's also a reference to just general function that any wolf clan can, appeal to, in a dominant way, but also any of the clans can appeal to, right? In some way, shape, or form in terms of how dynamic the clan system can be. So every clan can have a well, right? It's supposed to have a well functioning, right, for their clan to work, right? Even within non-wolf clan clans, right? So this is important, discussion that you bring up. We are, speaking to it a little bit earlier as well in the session before we got started, actually. So it's perfect timing. I mean, we got some good feedback from the Longhouse in that session you were with us in, and it bled into the Reconstitution as well, where it got even elaborated on even more. So it's heavy on our minds too. So, but it's just that in this, you may be conflating this diagram with the governance specific diagram, right? And they
I think I am.
yeah, they look almost exactly the same, right? But this is specific to journeys, right? So, like, ultimately, our alternative to the formal grants process, right, where we're applying system design and even able to plug folks into that consensus flow diagram that you're thinking of through Turtle Wolf and Bear design and stuff like this. But it is specific to like folks who aren't comfortable with writing out a whole grant on GitHub, right? And all the things that come with that and how technical it may feel it needs to be on the GitHub space, right? And how informal it can start to look like and take shape in our own structures here, right? And but also speak to like community supported paths to feeling comfortable writing your own grant, right? By the time you get to the DAO, like wanting to make your own DAO or make official the start of the journey, right? And any funding that comes with it or whatever. So, I think and I don't want to make it seem like this has to be separate things as well, right? Like we could decide as a collective that look, maybe we limit the who can post into journeys to Wolf Clan representative because that's who we know and trust will do the due diligence as like to which journeys get in there, right? But maybe that feels too limited to us. So this is something that we would just have to put on the table if we do want to combine these two discussions, which I think we can, right? So it's not. I don't want to make it seem like it's totally separate. But yeah, I just wanted to make that clear too, Aloe, because I know the diagram should probably change color or something.
They do, yeah. The only thing that made me really realize that it was like a different diagram was the pattern, the shapes. I was like, that's pretty. I was like, that's different. And I was like, what am I not seeing here? Because I was seeing a lot of the same words. My brain works pattern recognition, not memory, pattern recognition. And I'm like, hold on a second. So yeah, see how it's applicable energy-wise to a little bit of everything. But I also see how what I'm thinking and talking about is definitely that other diagram and me picturing that as like the well and things or whatever. Because I'm trying really hard to like thread all these ideas together, like they're all starting to take shape and I can actually see where the things like happen and whatever. It's nice.
Yeah. No, the other diagram does start with Wolf Clan, and the active issues is kind of our Discord language for well, right? Which maybe we can merge the two better somehow, some way. But no, yeah, I was wondering if there was any conflation there. But no, thank you kindly, Aloe. I mean, there's all good dialogue anyway, right? Even as the way that we can merge it is a potential discussion point, right? That we wouldn't have come to otherwise. So thank you kindly. But yeah, I think we lost the screen for whatever reason, Haas. We lost you too, or maybe it's just me. Let me know, y'all.
Are you saying that I'm gaslighting you, Harold?
I guess it's a form of it. Maybe if is there a screen there, or can other people see Haas? There we go.
Okay, now.
These dots for YouTube.
You still see dots?
Yeah, I still see dots. Does everybody see dots?
I see it. It's coming through just now.
Oh, I see the diagram now. Yeah, but I still don't see you, Haas. But I guess that doesn't matter as much. But maybe it'll change. Maybe other people see you as well.
I see Haas.
You do? You don't, or do, Mara? Yeah.
I do. Yeah.
Damn. All right. So don't worry about it, Haas. It's just me. But yeah, let me know, Haas, how you feel. Should we listen to Jenny's advice and start taking out this micro DAO language and funding proposal language and just start putting in grant language. That's one of the things that was on my mind after making this. How do you feel, Eric?
Let me ask you this. What language to what language? What?
Okay, so one of the things that was on my mind, right, was Jenny had recently mentioned to us this advice, right, of not focusing so much on like the micro DAO language and or other like more technical language, and just grant language. But this is a technical spec, so maybe this is the place for this. Maybe we apply more of the grant language in other places. I don't know. That's one of the things that popped up in my mind. Also, one thing that may make sense for this too is to have consensus somewhere in there, because it is in the tooling as well, and it's not necessarily there. It's kind of there in the hidden in MicroDAO creation. So maybe we make that more explicit. But I don't know. Maybe you guys hate the whole thing altogether, so let me not make assumptions about just the wording. But I just wanted to run all this by y'all and see what y'all thought.
I'll give you my ideas. So let's start from the beginning. So we have someone posting in journeys, and then that goes to ideation and workspace phases and discovery and updates. What does that mean?
So I figure that there's two different, like in the other diagram, the reason why I kept the two different paths was because there's the folks that start journeys, and then there's folks that like join journeys, right? And then there's folks that are maybe interested in the updates from the journeys, right? Which can all happen in the same spot, but people are coming from different angles. So that's what I try to achieve there in terms of the flow.
And then that moves to
So, yeah, one side you can think of it as the creation flow side, and the other side would be where there's an active journey already. So, yeah, I hope we'll go from there.
so when so let's think about it in terms of like a real journey. And so if we model the journeys after the consensus flow, so there might be a role of someone picking up journeys, or at least like putting them in the track to be like funded, supported, or published. Is that a good assumption?
Maybe I need a little bit of clarity. You're saying that if there's
a wolf rep for issues, like should we follow the same format?
Yeah. This is kind of what came out of Alo's question, right? When I try to combine the two discussion points, it seems, and it makes sense, right? If we do want to leverage the clan design inside of Journey somehow, I'm all for that. Is that what you're asking?
It is kind of like, it kind of makes sense because we're taking like the responsibility for this program anyway. Like so it kind of makes sense. It
does give a whole lot more confidence too in terms of how Journey starts to organize, right? If we can speak to the system design in that more intricate way. So yeah, I'm down for showing this somehow in the diagram somewhere, and maybe we a lot of this diagram too was I wanted to be sure to just look at the spec, right? I looked over the spec again and what was written, and try to take different parts of that and make them visible in the diagram. So if we want to reorganize the spec to reflect using the clan design to to help us through this same flow, I think that'll be good too. But I think it makes sense, right? I mean, even for some of what you're trying to achieve in the checks and balances with the observers and things like this could speak to certain traits in specific clans, right? And the different admin roles and things like this. Maybe that speaks to more Wolf Clan or Bear Clan. So maybe it gives us some good direction to go, right? And so yeah, maybe we blend this into the spec a little bit more, and I'll be sure to bring it into the diagram. But yeah, let's speak on it a little bit too. Like how do folks see Turtle, Wolf, and Bear like helping this flow along, right? Of course, like Hala says, we can think of the consensus flow to help guide us in terms of maybe writing it out in the spec clearly. But I'll leave the floor open. I obviously have my thoughts.
Can I comment?
No, you can't.
So I think there's two sort of areas you might want to cover. As in, like, one side of the things is we all have the same exact understanding of how it works and each steps. But I think perhaps right now we don't have all the same interpretation of each steps. So I think that side we need to figure out. And then I think what the other side that needs to be covered is, who are you speaking to? Who is actually wanting to, like, you may have different diagrams for different person looking at it. For example, we looking at it, we know the inner working of each steps. We may have a very detailed diagram, but that diagram does not need to be seen by other people who may just need to know on a higher level. So I think we need to think about, like, who is the audience that you're speaking to? Like, who is the audience you're presenting it to? Or is it going to be like, are we talking about presenting a diagram like as if it's like instruction type, like somebody new to Stacks and goes on the website and looks at the instruction set and go, oh, okay, this is how I do it, step 1, 2, 3, 4. Or is it Jenny who needs to look at it? But that would be totally different because she doesn't need to know all of the steps, but she needs to know enough, but not to the details of what you guys need to know underneath the hood. So I think it really depends, like, who the diagram you're constructing for, and just sufficient understanding for that particular audience is enough, because you don't want to overcrowd the diagram for that particular user to speak to that audience and have lots of questions raised. What I think ideally would be nice is whoever that audience look at certain version of the diagram and have very clear idea of how he or she would get how it works. So you might have people say at the foundation level that they don't need to know like everything. You may have guys like people who actually gonna be the one serving as a Turtle, Wolf, and Bear, actually using it on a daily basis. May not be the applicant, but maybe the people who support. That version might be the same as the person who applies. Yeah, no, just so that's just something I can think of. And actually, there's a third thing. Wait. And and the third point about what you said about incorporating some of the animals. me and Julia actually went through that thought process, and we actually include what animal does each step of the process, from the beginning to the end. So who logs an issue, who broadcasts the issue to the public, is more of like a wolf job. And then that wolf will pass that job to the bear person, who, actually do a lot of the looking after of the case, so to speak. So I think that picture that me and Juliet came up with might be a reference point that we can check out. We don't have to follow it at all because every case is different, but we did think about, okay, like we actually had different animals of earlier version, and then we actually thought about, what's the trait of this person's task? So this person logs, but that person doesn't need to be the observer, and actually the turtle is an observer. Therefore, we replace one of the thing with the turtle. So, but to understand that process, you need to have the full exploded view of the process of each step and bring the animal in at each point. But you can only achieve that once you know every step, what tasks are involved. So yeah, sorry, that's it.
No, that's perfect. That's perfect. No, yeah, 100% agree with pinpointing the audience. That's why I was like, okay, this is a technical spec. Maybe some of the getting into the nuances is okay, and like you're saying, some of us knowing some of the details of it, but at least coming to understanding of the interpretations of each step will be important. But yeah, I think it would be important that we have a more outward-facing diagram as well, as you're saying as well. But I don't think that this was the original intent of this. I think this was, quite a while ago now, intended just for these sessions between us, right? So that we can help us visualize the discussion and yeah, I deeply appreciate your insights that come from yourself and Juliet, going very deep into understanding the traits and how they can come into play in certain flows within within advocates, right? Whether it's conflict resolution or journeys here, right? I think it does apply, right? Particularly, right, to your point of knowing the different tasks at hand. We know at least in one aspects of the spec, right? There's the 3 levels of power in the micro DAO that Haas put down, right? This grantor, observer, and journeyers, right? And so maybe it's interesting to think about Turtle Wolf and Mare in that context, but also in that broader context of that Haas mentioned in terms of who initiates the journeys. And one of my questions, right, to that Haas or to anybody here would be, does this make sense too in terms of restricting who posts a journey, right, to this wolf representative, right, from in the broader advocates DAO, or do we just want to break down the structure in terms of function, right, and not limit the who can actually post a journey or initiate a journey? Because I know that was one of the things you were thinking about, Haas, right, in terms of journeys, is just allowing folks to start their own. So if we do consider the system design or the clan design here in a more granular way, how do we want to implement it, right? Because in the consensus flow implementation, we limit the initiation of issues and whatever flow they go on to Wolf Clan representatives, right? For very good reason that we just got elaborated on by the Longhouse and the Reconstitution, and in the session that we had with with the advocates in the Longhouse. Some of the nuances of, you know, the discernment involved in a wolf representative, their ability to apply it, to see if it aligns with the collective's, you know, core values, systems, and things like this. There's an important thing that may apply to journeys as well if we put it on the table for discussion. So that's one of the things that I want to maybe we can discuss here. And of course, Hero we can use that. I know you guys put together a really nice graphic in terms of diagramming how Turtle Wolf and Bear applies to conflict resolution. And so if we want to pull that up even in today's discussion to guide how we're thinking about the different parts of journeys, I'm sure it'd be pretty productive for folks who haven't seen it already, especially. But yeah, so yeah, maybe we get down to what makes the best of the three levels in power, right? How the clan system applies there. I know that's a big part of the flow, but also the initiation of journeys is a big part of the flow. You said something very interesting, Hero, about Bear Clan seeing something through, right? Keeping it alive, right? As Desiree,
keeping an issue alive.
Yeah, as Desiree mentioned, right? Which in the context of journeys, maybe it's not an issue, but maybe it's some of the baseline administration or coordinating things that are going on. I'm not sure, right? So I don't know how you guys want to think about it.
So, thinking about the Wolf Clan being the one to like pick up I'm thinking about like, I almost think like journeys is more like could be more like generalized, and some journeys would get picked up and then brought into, you know, maybe the well, and that makes it become tied to, like the Stacks Advox, and then it would be more tied into Decline, or maybe we just have them all tied in. But what I'm thinking about a lot is, I don't remember if it was the Friday session, if it was the reconstitution that Getson Cedillo was talking about. The well needing to decide whether or not a given issue is in alignment with the Constitution, right? With yeah, I guess what in our case would be our code of conduct, or would be in alignment with the Great Law of Peace in that like in Yagahaga context, right? And what we're trying to emulate here. And I'm still like, I've been tossing around in my head like what exactly. And I was actually going to ask this, and then I kind of ran out of time, and we were towards the end of our time slot. But I was going to ask is, what should be the role of the Stacks Advocates within the Great Law of Peace, right? And when it comes to our Constitution, our Code of Conduct, what brings us together as the Stacks Advocates, right? What do we have to, like me as a temporary Wolf Clan, what should I be comparing against to decide whether or not a given journey is, you know, something that should be picked up by the well? Yeah, check. That's those. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a beautiful question. I was thinking about it recently too. Even, you know, it was one of my questions, or at least wrapped into some of my questions that I didn't get to answer either at that session. And, you know, one of the things that again popped up during this same elaboration from the Longhouse and the Reconstitution, as you mentioned yesterday. And, you know, it really got me thinking, and it has me thinking for a while, right? You know, discussions with Juliet even, and some of the conferences she's been following, and you know, lectures from Primavera about just the importance of code of conducts and from the legal framework perspective. And so it had me thinking hard about that. And I think I had a realization about something potentially powerful. You know, even in Canadian law, U.S. law, potentially even too, right? The 201 poem is mentioned, right? And the way that it's mentioned is interesting in terms of the way that it maintains its international jurisprudence through the way that it's mentioned in these different legislations or different ways that it's brought up in court precedents and things like this. Is that it's just mentioned because there's not a written 201 poem treaty, and and actually it's an extension of the Guyana Rasa Goa, which is the Great Law of Peace, right? And this isn't written either, and so it's I don't know where that's from, but
That was me.
okay. The fact that these things aren't written, and the fact that they are oral, and there is a written one that we were actually a part of in terms of completing the writing of it in our Ganya Gaha classes or what have you. But that's the only one that has been corrected and has these matrilineal protocols intact. And even that is just so it can only ever be a reminder of these recitals of the Guyana Rasa Goa, the Great Law of Peace, every 5 years, which is the genuine version of it, right? The only real constitution is that living reciprocity-based constitution, reciprocity in terms of the collective, and these protocols that have been passed down, because they change based on those circumstances, right? The understanding of it evolves in things like this. And when it comes to code of conducts, right, and some of the things that Primavera de Filipe is trying to achieve in terms of this in-between space, in terms of legality, to really open up innovation structures in a Web3 space, right, as it relates to DAOs and how they're really the epitome of this in-between space in terms of legal structures, corporate structures, and the conventional structures we're used to. And having something in code of conduct that speaks to the legitimacy and the sole legitimacy of recitations, of oral recitation, I think is important to answer your question, Eric. Because it'd be one thing, right, both legally and even as it relates to our own structures, how it might impact us if we're referring to only a reminder of what is supposed to be a living constitution, right? How that can get choppy, right? Even in how we address our own structures, how we address each other in our own structures. But also what this opens up legally in terms of DAO legal frameworks in general, and how it can tie us back to 201 poem dialogue and jurisprudence as well, right? But also the way that we can build Guyana Rasa Goa and 201 poem dialogue and peace treaty into code of conduct, right? Because even our own participation in the Great Law recital, right, is possible, and it's the way that we can reference in our code of conduct through dialogue that we look back to our that this code of conduct includes 201 poem dialogue, right, or is based on 201 poem dialogue, right? And so that, I think hopefully that answers your question, and it brings up a lot of things I've been excited to bring to discussion as well, which I don't think is a separate discussion than this, right? Especially if we're bringing the clan design into Journeys, right? And this goes into Wolf Clan representative responsibilities and understandings, right? So no, thank you kindly, Merrick, for thinking on those levels. And I hope that all that made sense too for everybody here.
Yeah, because Mary kindly brought the guy Mark in last week, and he was like, "You guys don't know, you don't have a copy of, or you haven't read Great Law of Peace." I was like, yeah, I don't know about that. maybe ask Harold. We're just going, we hanging by him to know that kind of stuff. So
Yeah, yeah. I think they actually lost big chunks of the all the work that they recently did over the
Right.
last couple of years to like get an authentic one written down. The only one that's written down that folks can maybe find is a Quaker version, which leaves out a whole lot of the matrilineal protocols and inserts a whole lot of Christian institution stuff, right? But a lot of the nuances were put back in. We were able, be a part of them getting to the end of it, but I think they lost some of it. So, but there is the last Great Law recital that I still have links to and stuff like this. All 15 days. It's a short version of what is like a longer 30-day version, but there's an
15
entire
days?
recording.
Oh,
Yeah, 15 days. Yeah, yeah, it's no joke that many. Yeah, that's how many protocols are in there, right? But that's also why it makes sense for the code of conducts to be have reference to living oral constitutions or code of conducts, right? Because we also have to learn this stuff too, right? It takes time, but to say the least. But yeah,
so
I
if
still have that.
just because I don't know I'm not as into the weeds of the history of this. So if I just rephrase what you said about the Great Law of Peace and Longhouse stuff. So did you basically kind of and excuse my loose terms, but hopefully you get what I mean. So it sounds like if like there was a Bible and that Bible sort of got lost and got changed along the way, and different versions or maybe some pages got lost, and then Longhouse has a version. It's not the original version, but it's a version of the original. But they don't even have a physical copy of it. Um, something like that.
Somewhat. It's oral, right? So the longhouse that we are in dialogue with, right, is the only longhouse that still has these matrilineal protocols intact, like through memory, through passed down protocols, right? That you have to grow up, in the ceremonies, particularly in the longhouse that we work with case, like the mother of this particular longhouse was a clan mother. Not everybody who is, Ganyaga Haga has mother who was clan mother, title holder, right? Legally at least, right? Because band council, you can achieve this illegally, right? But like intact through, all the same line that we're holding these protocols, before colonization. That's only this longhouse, right? And this only longhouse that can stand flat-footed and recite protocols for 30 days straight.